Good afternoon and welcome to the Finance, Budget and Personnel Committee meeting for the City of Marshfield for Tuesday, April 20, 2021. First order of business is to identify potential conflicts of interest. Mr. Handler, everybody read the thing, the packet? If there's anything in there that you feel uncomfortable with, let us know now. Okay, we will move on to the consent agenda. In the consent agenda tonight, we have the minutes of the April 6, 2021 meeting, the report of the personnel actions, bills and payroll. They're in your packet. You read them. What are your wishes? Motion by Peschel, second by Wetzel to approve. If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Next up is nothing removed from the consent agenda, so request to recommend council approval of updated health services agreement with Advanced Physical Therapy, Scott Owen Fire Chief. Scott.
Good evening. I believe it was 2 years ago, we started our contract with Advanced Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine as part of a fitness program and physical therapy for department members. This is the same company that the police department uses. This year, the therapist left, and we met with Tracy, who is kind of in charge of this contract from their side. And she made a recommendation to switch the physical therapy portion to a local provider. This would be for both us and the police department. So part of this agreement is to switch our physical therapy to Health in Motion with Ben Solheim right here in Marshfield. And any fitness for duty type exams or tests would still be done through Advanced Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine. There's no financial impact to the contract. Any increases or changes in costs would be discussed and brought forward with the 2022 budget. This is actually for two contracts. One is for Advanced Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine to update the contract language for the physical fitness portion. And then the other one would be with Health in Motion for the physical therapy component. This was brought to the Police and Fire Commission at their last meeting on April 13th, and it was approved by them. With that, I ask for your approval to send it forward to council for final approval and signatures, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Handler.
So move to approve.
Motion by Handler, second by Peschel. Discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Chief, how often is this utilized by the members of your department?
So the therapist, the physical therapist is in our station 2 times a week, about 4 to 5 hours a week. And they are pretty steady with individuals. We have members that come in both on duty and off duty. Some of these are related to work injuries. Others are off work, and it saves costs of sometimes having to go to the emergency room or urgent care if the therapist is able to stretch out the problem or work with that individual. It's been very well received in our department as well as the police department.
Are there any further questions? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Rebecca, was that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next up is a request to recommend council approval of contract renewal for Wisconsin Hazardous Materials Response System Services. And you didn't lose your turn at the podium. Go ahead, Scott.
All right, back in 2013, the department became a Type 3 state resource team for hazardous materials response in the region. This contract is renewed every 2 years, and the next one is due in June. So there's no financial cost for us to be part of this team. We do receive funding from the state as a Type 3 response team. With that, again, I'd ask for your approval and to forward it on to council. This was also approved by the commission on April 13th.
What's your wishes?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Peschel, second by Wetzel. Discussion? What's a type 3, Scott?
Type 3 just means it's a hazmat technician. So we can go in, we can mitigate certain hazardous materials releases. Anything that is above our training level would go to like Wausau or Appleton, Eau Claire, the bigger teams. But we can handle most spills, most incidents as a hazmat type 3 team.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Becky?
yes,
Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is request to recommend the council approval to start the hiring process to fill an anticipated vacancy in the fire department, presented by Scott. Gee, what a surprise.
I kind of feel like Steve Barg up here tonight.
Yeah.
So the purpose of this is to begin the process of refilling an anticipated vacancy in May due to a retirement. As was noted when I was off, requests come before the Police and Fire Commission and then through Finance, Budget, and Council for refilling. So we're asking for your approval to move this portion forward so that when we do have that retirement come up, we're not delayed in the process. We're able to bring the next candidate on board right away. So again, this was presented and approved by the commission on April 3rd.
Mr. Handler,
What part of the department is this position, the new position or the old position of?
It'll be in the fire protection.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
motion by Handler, second by Wetzel to approve. Discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was an aye. Becky? Wait, that delay is making me nuts, so don't, I'm sorry, but, okay. All right.
Okay.
So I have it as unanimous, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is update on cost incurred related to implementation of the new ethics board presented by Jen Rakio. Scott, you sure you don't want to handle this one?
Thank you. So my purpose tonight is to give you an update on the ethics board and how that position is, or that board is developing as post-implementation. So we've had 2 meetings to date, one on March 10th and one on April 8th. We have 2 meetings scheduled coming up, one on May 5th and one on June 2nd. The ethics board is currently in process of finalizing the complaint form so that if there is a complaint, we've got an easy mechanism for a citizen to utilize. And then a conflict of interest disclosure statement that will be provided not only to committees, boards, and commissions, as well as regular employees within the city. So those are 2 things that the committee is currently working on. One of the things we did in our organizational meeting was talk about training. And as part of the training, what we were looking for was just an overview of ethics in municipal government for the members. And so we did reach out to Dean Dietrich. In regard to the training, we did get a quote for that training. It's $500. And we were looking at having that training set up on May 5th, 2021 at 5 o'clock. And the ethics committee or ethics board did request that if any council members are interested, they're definitely more than welcome to attend and encouraged to do so. In looking at the ordinance, in order to do the training that we've talked about, I do need to have council approval. And so while initially we had not planned to ask for a recommendation, I will ask for a motion tonight to approve the training that we've requested. Overall, in terms of what the board has cost to date, we have had some legal costs as we looked to ensure everything is set up correctly. That's just slightly over $3,000. The training is expected to be $500, and then costs are expected to vary as there is a per diem for the meetings that this committee will convene. We are expecting that we're going to convene once a month, at least as we're getting started here. And then obviously, if we do get a complaint, those meetings may vary based on the steps that we'll need to resolve that. So at this point, we would look that the cost would be potentially allocated to the Common Council budget. I did follow up with Ron in regard to that. And we will be setting up an ethics board line item for the 2022 budget going forward so that we can capture these costs together. With that, I'm certainly happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I would look for your approval.
What are your wishes? Well, I'm thinking what we can do is make a recommendation to have Ron, do we need a budget resolution for this?
No, not necessarily. Usually the budget's approved at the function level, so that would be the entire council budget. So as long as at this point we're not over the entire council budget, we won't ask for a budget resolution, but it may pop up later in the year.
Okay. So I assume that we can, what we can do is forward it to the council and ask them to make that motion.
I think we just placed it on the council agenda, because the agenda said there's going to be no, this is.
No action, yeah.
No action. Yeah.
So why don't we carry this over to the council meeting for the meeting on the 27th? Would that be in time? I mean, you're gonna be okay. When is that? What's the date of the training?
May 5th.
Okay, so we've got time.
Are you suggesting it'll be action, a separate item as opposed to a consent agenda item that night?
A separate item.
Because it wasn't noticed here appropriately, that's
Yeah.
fine.
That's
Right,
correct.
right,
It can't
right.
be on the consent because it's not part of, it's not.
That's
a
fine,
motion.
that's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Deb. Appreciate that. Okay, and Jen, you got anything else?
I don't.
Are there any other questions? If not, let's see, update on federal stimulus fund. Mr. Bard, or no, excuse me, Ron, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Just wanted to update you on the stimulus money the city's going to receive, officially the American Rescue Plan Act. And the Cliff Notes version is they're going to send us a check next month with very little guidance on what we can spend it for. So kind of go over the detail of what I have. So the city's been awarded $1,830,000 as a part of this act. We'll receive half of it in May of this year and half of next year. It's available till the end of 2024, and then any unexpended funds are returned. And like I mentioned, I've sat through 4 webinars, and it's really lacking detailed guidance. It gives you broad categories of what you can spend it on, but lots and lots of questions. And I'm going to go through those a little bit to give you a sense for it. So the consensus from the league and everyone I've talked to is set up a separate special revenue fund, which we'll do, deposit it, and then, await further instructions, guidance, and then, consensus on how we want to spend it. So some of the concern is about double counting it for money we've already been reimbursed for, possibly giving it to an entity that's also going to receive stimulus money and then, gets clawed back and those kind of things. Just give you some examples. So the 4 main categories are to respond to the public health emergency with respect to COVID. So that's fairly vague, and we've received some pretty substantial funds from the state on that already. So we'll need some additional guidelines. Pay for essential workers. Again, what's their definition this time of essential workers? And if you recall that the Routes to Recovery paid our streets, fire, and police for some of the shift changes that we paid. So we've been reimbursed for part of that also. And the trickiest one is to reimburse the government to the extent that revenues were reduced due to COVID-19. So a couple things. So one is, for example, our Parks and Rec and our library, our revenues are down quite a bit, but so are our expenses. So are we talking gross or net? You could look at something like room tax. Room tax is down. Well, we pay our visitors board a pretty good chunk of that. Do we have to make them whole? Interest revenue, interest revenue obviously is down, can I just go line item by line item? So those are the questions that are coming up at these webinars. How do I calculate it? Is it gross or net? And then the fourth category, which I think would be the one we'd want to focus on, is to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure, which, and their entire guidance, and I think something came out today, but the guidance I had up to this point was Treasury will provide additional guidance. So, but that's the big category. Let me see if I have anything else here. As I mentioned, yep, we don't want to double count something we've reimbursed for. It sounds like there's some fairly onerous reporting requirements on this one. So our plan is I'll create a special revenue fund. We'll deposit the money in there so we can keep an eye on it. It'll earn some interest. And then as we're updated on, the additional uses, we'd probably get a group together of, department heads and some council members and kind of start looking at proposals. So I'll take any questions on that.
Mr. Witzel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned that first topic, can't remember exactly what it was, COVID emergency.
To respond to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19.
Okay, so we've obviously had expenses in that area. I get the impression from what you said that we didn't necessarily receive help from higher levels of government for that. So there, maybe we spent 5 million and we only got back 4 million. That's probably way high, but you know what I'm saying? I'm guessing that we had expenses that we did not see reimbursed.
I think so for the routes to recovery, we received $334,000, and that was the staff time for police, fire, and streets with the shifts. That was all the dividers, sanitation supplies, telework items like the touchless drinking fountains. Because it was a expenditure-based reimbursement, we put in as many requests as we could. So the guidance might be different than that grant, but I feel we used as much as we could, and that was allowable under the previous grant.
I guess what I was just wondering is if we had additional expenses that we hadn't gotten back from that, those eligible, or is it from here moving forward?
It actually doesn't. I'm not sure on that. So those covered basically through the end of 2020. What you're asking is, what about 2021? Do we have ongoing expenses?
Just retroactive expenses before this money was given.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that one yet.
But this is potentially usable for those?
Correct. Once they're defined. And I think that bucket's going to be fairly small. I'm scratching my head trying to think of something ongoing, COVID related that we're incurring right now. I'm not thinking of anything material at this moment.
Biggest thing though is no double dipping, no paying for something we already paid.
Correct. Even to the point where some of the cities on the call, the bigger cities, we're going to just hire a consultant to make sure that they got it right in the end.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Ron, I got one for you. During that period of time, the city set up its own emergency relief fund for small businesses, and I forget we spent almost $100,000 on that, if I'm not mistaken. Can we be reimbursed? Can we reimburse the Economic Development Fund for that expenditure, which was due to COVID expense?
I think Josh Miller asked me that within 5 minutes of getting notified of the money. Not certain. I mean, that's certainly on our list of one of the first things we'll ask. Okay. But I'm not sure at this point.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? If not, do we have any suggested items for future agendas? Steve, Jen, Ron, nothing? Okay, if not, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.